Hi guys, Neil Tappin here from Golf Monthly. You join me in a very wet and rainy St Ives near Cambridge, and this is where the Acushnet company have their headquarters. So Acushnet are the owners of Titleist and FootJoy, and I'm here today because this thing is here today. This is the Titleist tour truck. It does 25 events out on the European Tour every year. If you've been to a European Tour event, you've probably seen it there. And it provides all the support in terms of equipment that any of the players who are using Titleist clubs or balls, FootJoy gloves, FootJoy shoes could possibly need during the course of a year. Now, the Titleist guys have very kindly given me a little show around, and I'm now going to take you on board and show you around. If there is anything you want to ask, any questions, any comments, please do leave comments below. Hit the like button if you like what you see, but let's go and take a look inside. Okay, so when you first come onto the tour truck, you get to the sort of main seating area. This is where during a tournament week, caddies and players, managers will all get together and meet up, have meetings during a tournament week. And you might be a little bit disappointed by the lack of golfing paraphernalia kicking about, but you'd be fooled for thinking there was no golf equipment on here, because there is lots. And in this area here is where Titleist keep all of their sort of soft goods, their hats and gloves, balls in particular. And behind me here is where all the golf balls are kept for a tournament week. Now obviously Titleist is the #1 golf ball on tour. A lot of the players use Titleist golf balls, so they have to take an enormous number of golf balls out to every tournament week. There are 450 dozen Titleist Pro V1, Pro V1 X golf balls stashed in this area here. Every player will get 3 or 4 dozen per week. And when the guys arrive, they'll come straight to this area and they'll start to unpack this. And in behind this shutter here, you've got a series of cubby holes so that players can come onto the truck, or the caddies come onto the truck, and they pick up the golf balls that each player is allocated for that tournament week. You have everything here, all the high numbered Pro V1, Pro V1 X's, the low number ones, and there are 80% of what is behind me is what you'll find on the shelves of your local pro shop. There are a few slight alternatives out there, some old product, plus there's some, I guess it would be prototype product that the players are testing. So that's what you would have behind here. To my left here is where all the soft goods are kept. So there are 6 different types of cap, plus there's visors, there's all sorts of different colours as well. So there's loads of caps in here, but you also have bucket hats, Titleist FJ logo on the side, Pro V1 on the side there. You also have Aussie style sun hats. Now I'm yet to see a player wear one of these out on the golf course. These are mostly for the caddies, but I'm sure if the sun comes out, these are pretty popular. You have towels on this side, and and a few other caps and visors above that. In the drawer below that, you have all of the gloves. Now, on the truck here, they carry FootJoy Stay Soft, the Titleist Players Glove, the FootJoy Pro Flex, FootJoy Rain Glove. In here, these are all the rain gloves, which are not going to be used very often, but suddenly when it rains, these become extremely important in your golf bag. And then finally, on the left here, are the FootJoy Pure Touch gloves. Not every player in the family here at Titleist FootJoy gets to wear these, so that's why there's quite limited supply there. There's a few towels in this drawer as well. In the drawer underneath, you have waterproofs. You have the second strap that the caddies might need. So obviously tour bags, incredibly heavy, a few spare second straps, a few rain covers for the tour bags, and then you also have boxes of beanies. And then in the bottom drawer here, you have a load of mitts and waterproof trousers. Now you might think there's hundreds of pairs of mitts here. You might think that's slightly excessive given how many beautiful tour venues they go to where they're expecting the weather to be good, but all it takes is the temperature to really dip, get a bad week of weather, and suddenly the tour truck will get completely bombarded by people, and so they have to carry all of these things out with them every week on tour. And then behind me here you have umbrellas. If I open that up, umbrellas there stashed in their nice little custom built cubby hole up there. On the right hand side you have more storage, so there's a few more hats and a few bits and bobs in there, and a fridge in here, a few other bits of storage. Now, I have run into a couple of bits of some signed goods. I have a hat signed by Beef, a hat signed by Ian Poulter, and I also have golf balls signed by Paul Dunn and Eddie Pepperell. Now we will give away these items to people who've left comments below, so leave some comments, ask any questions you want to ask about the tour truck. We'll try and get back to as many of you as possible, but anyone who leaves a comment below will get the chance to win one of these. Now each side of the cabin also has its own bit of storage. We've talked about the cubby hole here for gloves and balls. In this, if I come to this side, in here you'll find the some FootJoy shoes. Thomas Aiken's shoes are up here on the left hand side. The truck carries a few pairs for him. These are some specific shoes for specific players. And then below the seating area here, you have a storage compartment for all the different soft spikes that might be required in all the different shoes. There is nothing that is not catered for on this truck. One other thing to mention about the Titleist FootJoy operation, every time they're seeding new product on tour, they need to prepare for that on the truck. And right now, the guys at FootJoy are getting their players into the new Tour S shoe. So the truck will carry Tour S shoes in every size so that players can come on and they can try them on, they can get fitted, they can get some feedback and some thoughts on the new shoes that come out. Here they are, this is the Tour S shoe. And it's a similar story on that side. On the other side, you actually have a few items that are due to be signed by some of the players. Okay, so that's this area of the truck. Now let's go into the workshop where you've got all of the golf clubs and shafts. So the workshop area is split into two even parts. On the left-hand side, you have where they do all of their work on irons and wedges. And on the right-hand side, you have where they do their work on metalwoods and the Scotty Cameron area. Now, I'm going to start over here. So the machinery, you'll notice, it sort of mirrors each other. So they can, effectively, two people can work in this space simultaneously. If I start over here, you've got all of your iron shafts. The guys were telling me that still out on tour, Dynamic Gold is by far and away the most popular iron shaft. So that's what you see the majority of here. You also have some Project X. Each of these drawers is just filled with shaft after shaft after shaft. Next space along, you've got two top drawers have more shafts in, and then you reach the area with all of the different Titleist Vokey wedges. Now, there are two different types of wedge finish in this particular drawer. There is the classic chrome SM7, and that takes up about 50% of the space in here. And then the other 50% is taken up by a raw finish. Now, the raw finish, basically, it hasn't had that same chrome plating, so it will rust. This one is about a week old. It's been here, the guys were saying to me, it's been in this drawer for about a week, and you can start to see a little bit of rusting there on the head. Now, Titleist offer this to the consumer, but only through Wedgeworks, because it's not something that you can really have on the shelf of a pro shop, because it just looks a bit worn. However, that definitely is a look that a lot of golfers really love, and it's certainly loved by a lot of the players out on tour. Now, as you expect, there is every single type of loft and grind available in this drawer, but there's also a few snazzy little extras. Scott Hend has a wedge that is slightly custom for him. So if I open it up here, it's the black SM7. It's got a couple of sort of weight ports in the back here and has an area in the heel that has just been slightly ground off. So once you've worked through your wedge heads and your iron heads, the next drawer along is the grips. And by far and away, the most popular grip on tour is the classic Tour Velvet grip by Golf Pride, still the most popular after all of these years. But there's all sorts of different options, from full cord options to multi-compounds. Everything is in these drawers. The further you go down, the more funky the grips get. There's this new Align grip that Golf Pride have produced. It puts the rib on the outside of the grip. That's proving to be quite popular out on tour, the guys were saying. Then at the bottom, you have more different types of styles. But in the cubby holes on the left, what is definitely worth showing to you is a few different options that are available to specific players. So some players will want grips that are completely their own. They're using something completely different to everybody else. One of those is Jordan Spieth up here. He uses a Super Stroke grip, so Titleist carry Spieth grips just for him up here in case he wanders on. So think about the few tournaments in the year that he might be playing over in Europe. So he'll obviously play the Open, he might do Scottish Open potentially, possibly another event. So they keep some grips on him for that eventuality. Now, just a quick word on some of the machines that there are. The first one here is the Vokey, or it's the wedge stamping machine. So this here clamps the head on really tightly, some magnets that pull it down, keep it really tight, and the guys can stamp on any messages that any particular players might want. You also have, this is where you would do your work on your loss and lies and shafts, so shaft cutting, measuring, and then sanding it down, getting it all ready for the guys to play with. In this area you have the different grinding machines that the guys will need for the wedges. So there are 3 different belts you'll notice to these machines. The roughest belt, slightly smoother grinding machine, and then the polishing machine. So you make your initial grind here, roughly get it about right. You then do the fine details using this belt, and then you polish it up using the one on the left here. And just this drawer here, last thing to mention, is a few different tools to help the guys with the various different jobs around the workshop. So in the back of the workshop here, this is where all the metalwoods are kept. The top 2 drawers are devoted to drivers. So top drawer is all the D2 drivers. They come without any weights in. All the weights are kept up here, and there's absolutely anything that any player might need to be able to get their clubs dialed in perfectly for their game. So D2 in the top drawer, D3 down, loads and loads of wrenches. Next drawer down, you have all of the fairway woods, so F2 on the left hand side, 917 F3 on the right, and in the bottom drawer they stash all of the hybrids. It all starts to get a bit complicated when you move up and you reach where all the shafts are. Now there are so many metalwood shafts being used out on tour, and the manufacturers, so Titleist, will need to keep absolutely everything on this truck. And in the top drawer is all the Aldilla options there are. So there'll be options that you know and options that you don't know. So there'll be things like this very classic Rogue, Aldilla Rogue driver shaft. That's the one I have in my driver, but then there's also a whole host of different options in here that you probably wouldn't have seen before. So every different shaft manufacturer is catered for and is carried on this truck. There are some shafts from previous generations, things that you might remember if you've followed golf for 10 or 15 years. There are some shafts that date back quite a long time that some players are still using out on tour. The whole of this area is designed to service the players out on tour. So if there's something that you want, the guys at Titleist should be able to get it for you. So the final area of the workshop to talk about is the Scotty Cameron area. And one thing you'll know about Scotty is that he is famous as an engineer. He's definitely an engineer at heart. He builds putters, but he really loves the art of making a putter. And so all of the tools that allow them to do that are made by Scotty himself. This is the loft and lie checking machine. That will be made by Scotty. And him or his people, but quite probably him, he will make all of the little tools that go into building the machines. This has Scotty Cameron stamped on the side of it, and then the various different Scotty Cameron logos. This, I think, is for bending the hosels. It has for tour use only. That's obviously one of Scotty's slogans. Now, there are also a massive selection of different grips. Now, a quick look in this drawer and you might think they're all fairly similar, but they're not. They are different. The size of the grip in your left hand changes as you go between different areas. So that whilst they, on the left hand side in particular, they all look like fairly simple, straightforward grips, there are subtle differences. And again, it's those subtle differences that allow Scotty to tailor what he is doing to the players that are in the Titleist stable. Some more funky Scotty Cameron grips on the left hand side here. In the next door down, you have more grips, so super stroke grips, you've got some longer dual balance grips, and finally, the chipping disc. Let's say you're playing at the Open and the flag on one of the practice days is in a certain area, but the pin is due to be somewhere else on the Sunday. You can chuck down one of the chipping discs down in that area, and that gives you something to play towards. Really handy. They keep a stash on the tour truck. Now, finally, the final area that I really want to talk about is this area of Scotty Cameron putters here. Now, if you are a Titleist Scotty Cameron player, there's pretty much nothing that Scotty won't be able to build for you. He has his own custom shop in Carlsbad in California, and that's where he does a lot of this work. So if you're working closely with the guys that Scotty has out on tour, then you can create some designs of your own, and there are a host of really cool looking putters in here. Most of them have the little T stamp on them. That signifies for tour use only. There is a whole host of for tour use only signs within the workshop. This putter here is one that I sneaked a peek at earlier. It has a slightly different sort of bronzy finish on it, and it has Tour Rat written on the bottom of it. That's one of Scotty's little logos that he likes to use. It's a way of customizing it for people. You could stand here and have a look at these putters all day, and not just the putters, but the head covers too. The final thing I'm going to show you is just in here. If you're looking for a head cover, Scotty has a whole host stashed in here, all sorts of different shapes, sizes, colours, everything. As you would expect, it's pretty cool. Okay, so that's a look in the main part of the truck. Let's go and take a look in the cabin. Obviously, this does an awful lot of miles every year. I shouldn't think with trillions of Pro V1s stored underneath here, the MPG is particularly good. Let's have a look in the cabin. Okay, so I'm in the driver's seat and it's very comfortable. I guess it has to be. It's on the road for hours and hours on end. There's lots of space up here. There's a bed behind me there, should the driver require a bit of a pit stop on the way. The last tournament it did was in Madrid. It's come back to St Ives, and then tomorrow or the day after it heads off to Sicily, so that's a hell of a drive. And a driver can only do, I think it's something like 4 hours before he has to take a 45-minute break from driving on the road. So a lot of hours spent in here. It is very comfortable, but I'm sure after a while it starts to wear a little bit thin and get a bit uncomfortable in here. But from where I'm sitting, it looks pretty good. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've liked what you've seen, hit the like button, leave comments below. I think the big finding for me with this is just the level of customization that Titleist offer. It's not just in the Vokey range or in the Scotty Cameron range, it's across the board. Whatever the players on tour need, they can get through the tour truck here. They are incredibly spoilt to have access to everything they get, and it's all designed, both Titleist and FootJoy, to ensure that any player using their equipment has access to the best that they possibly can produce. Guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.